The Cryptonaut Podcast is brought to you by Cryptid Crate. Be sure to visit cryptidcrate.com and enter our promo code GRAMPUS, that's GRAMPUS, at checkout to get 10% off the entire life of your Cryptid Crate subscription. Cryptid Crate is a monthly subscription box filled with various cryptozoology and paranormal-themed items to wear, display, and collect. Each month, you can expect a carefully curated box filled with creeptastic pieces from indie makers and artisans pertaining to Bigfoot, Sasquatch, UFOs, ghosts, and other cryptid and mysterious creatures. So be sure to visit cryptidcrate.com, use our promo code GRAMPUS, that's GRAMPUS, to get 10% off the entire life of your Cryptid Crate subscription. Also, too, be sure to hit up our TeePublic shop. The link will be in the description of this podcast. We recently launched 2 new t-shirt designs. We have the Ultra Terrestrials, and we also have the indescribable, yet totally describable Octoman, as done by our very own Mr. Rob Morphy. So if you'd like to help support the podcast, head over to TeePublic shop, get yourself some t-shirts. We get a little kickback on the end of those sales, and it helps us pay the the podcast bills, whatever those may be. But yeah, there's some bills that we accrue and we have to pay them. And when you guys buy some t-shirts, it helps lift that financial burden. So there you go. Do that. And without further ado, Christopher, cue that creepy music. Hello and welcome to the Cryptonaut Podcast. I'm Mark Storrs, and with me as always is
Chris
and
Rob Morphy.
Be sure to check us out on the social medias, the Twitters, the Instagrams, the Facebooks.
Indeed.
We love talking with all you listeners. It's a good time. Be sure to rate and review this podcast on the iTunes and the Apple Podcast apps. It helps us out greatly. And also, you know what? Any other spots that you guys get your podcasts at, if you can rate us there, whether it's Stitcher or iHeartRadio or Spotify or whatever, give us a rating there too. It helps out.
Yeah, everything helps.
Totally. Okay, so let's do some ratings and reviews before we get the show started properly. These are coming from the iTunes, Apple Podcast apps, and we're going to start it off with 5-star review. Love this pod from Burger Guy 90.
Burgers.
Nice. Goes on to say, found this podcast from MAU, that's Monsters Among Us. What up? And love it. The banter between the hosts makes the podcast. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you very much, Burger Guy.
Word.
That is excellent.
Totes.
Don't send us burgers.
No, they'll rot.
Burgers in the... No, you could freeze them.
You send us coupons for burgers.
That's
Oh,
true.
that'd
You
be
could
great.
send coupons.
Burger
2 for
King
$5
coupons.
Whoppers.
Oh, there you go.
We all get the flyers.
Yeah, you got to add the cheese.
Let's see. Next one here. The podcast you have been looking for from Kev Rocks Wins. 5-star review. You'll feel like you're in the conversation of this podcast that examines lesser-known cryptic creatures. These guys deserve all the cookies and beer they have
Bless
coming
your
to them.
heart.
Because of their unique brand of comedic storytelling, it leaves you wanting more. Before binging their catalog, smash the subscribe button. You won't be upset.
Smash that shit.
Yeah. If you've not subscribed to this podcast and you're a regular listener, please subscribe on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, whatever podcast app you have, just subscribe. It eventually helps us out with the analytics and whatnot. So, yeah, smash the subscribe button.
Absolutely.
Drop the elbow.
Thank you so much.
DDT that shit. Okay, here we go. Next review. These guys get it. 5-star review from Logan2899. This is a phenomenal podcast that truly gets what makes the legends and stories of cryptids and other paranormal events great. They're well-researched and provide an excellent theories about what the creatures actually are from a skeptical point of view. But the best part of is the banter between the people who are definitely lifelong friends. Their friendship reigns supreme.
Absolutely.
We're holding
There it
hands
is.
right now.
Buddies for life. Thank you,
Hands
Logan.
across America.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much, Logan. Excellent. Hands across America. Love
Hands
it.
across this land I love.
There you go.
United we stand.
Oh, Chris is all fired up.
Divided
already.
we fall.
Chris is all fired up.
I know the words of Hands Across America.
Toby Keith or something.
Remember when they tried that?
I do
holding
remember.
hands?
Did
Yeah, I
it
think I do.
succeed? I mean, we
I
were
think the
young.
line was broken. This is why we failed as a country.
Oh, my God.
Moving
no.
on.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, that's terrible.
All right, our last review here comes from Foxy Testarossa.
Oh,
Jesus.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
know.
saucy little name.
I like that. Phenomenal work, 5-star review. I work 70-hour weeks, and this podcast really makes it fly by.
Bless your heart.
I would gladly fight anyone who says it's anything but a 5-star show.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jesus Christ.
Fucking Foxy Testarossa.
Badass.
Hard as
Yeah,
nails.
70 hours of fucking brutality.
Dude, think about that. Fucking 70 hours of work and was like, yo, if you don't give this shit 5 stars, I'll fight you right now in this parking lot.
That is one
Fucking
of my
watch me.
favorite
Listen,
things
when we go on our tour,
ever.
you're going to be our fucking
Oh,
body.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
Foxy
you're,
Testarossa.
wherever
you're
you are.
working the door, Foxy, completely.
Foxy
Yeah.
there.
Behind
All
the
right.
scenes, having fun,
Nice.
partying later with the groupies.
Keeping us safe.
There it
Because
is.
there's crypto
Yeah, seriously,
groupies.
Jesus.
There's totally crypto groupies in my mind.
Yeah,
They
no,
don't.
I don't.
Really exist, but let's just
I mean,
let the
if you
fantasy
know-
roll.
They
All
might,
right,
they might.
All right. I mean, like, okay, yeah, crypto groupies. Keep that rolling.
Yeah, well, we already have a live tour
Are
fantasy,
there going to be like
so why not go all the way?
Are you going to have like a bunch of people
Oh my
dressed up
God.
as you?
Fucking, could you imagine?
Oh, that'd be cool.
That'd be
yeah.
the least sexy thing that could ever
That'd
happen.
be the sexiest.
Are you
Stop.
kidding me?
Right. Just 3 people
Ball
dressed up
caps,
as the national
fake
treasure.
beards,
National Treasure
stage
Grab Book.
glasses,
There you go.
Yeah.
fucking t-shirts.
Yeah, there you go.
Phenomenal.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's the hottest shit ever.
Nice.
I would love to see cosplay.
yeah.
Yeah, well, are all 3 of us then?
All right, I can do it.
Yeah,
Totally.
fair
All right.
enough.
So Rob's got some reviews coming to you from our Facebook page. Facebook apparently changes the reviews to recommendations. I don't know what's going on with Facebook, so I don't know. Rob, take it away.
All right. Well, it's
Jeez,
basically the same thing, as
Well,
far as I can tell.
Whatever.
You, Mark's mad.
Yeah, he is. You don't like change.
I don't,
Well,
know,
yeah,
I,
but
no, I don't
do
like.
you-
I don't like Facebook. It's a problem.
Well, yeah, no. I get
Fair
it.
enough.
Oh.
The first review comes to us from Milo Carey. Absolutely the best and most entertaining podcast I've listened to. Well, damn.
Shit.
Thank you.
All right.
I agree, but
As someone that's always been interested in cryptids but generally too lazy to research things myself, it's fun to sit back and hear these guys talk about what they found and their personal thoughts and side notes to the stories told. Not only do they tell the research well, but with a great kind of humor that I've nearly cried laughing so hard at the things they've said numerous times.
All right. There you go.
Plus, all the cryptids we get to hear about from Ohio only seem to prove that there is definitely something going on in that liminal state.
yeah.
Like, yeah, it's on our maps, but it's not of this realm.
Oh, nice. Yeah. No.
Truer words were never said.
Ohio apparently is just
a
like
nexus of madness.
Dude, it's a hub.
It's a maelstrom
Yeah.
of hubs. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Oh, but
What does that even mean?
Maelstrom of hubs.
It's a storm,
A storm of
centers
hubs.
of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
And the hubs are of what? Cryptozoological and paranormal influence?
Let's not try to.
Yeah. Let's just leave
get
it
the
at
storm
that.
of
Thank
hubs.
you,
Yeah.
Milo.
Thank you very much, Milo. Awesome.
Thank you.
Next one comes to us
Awesome.
from Scott Johnson. This is a 5-star review.
Sweet.
A podcast this good is about as rare as in focus Bigfoot footage. So true.
Oh.
Jeez.
A huge fan. This podcast will take you into the wild and bizarre world of cryptids. 3 friends bring a uniquely hilarious and objective look into some of the lesser-known monsters, aliens, holes, stumps, clouds, and possessed
Oh my God.
dolls.
Whoa.
That is an awesome
That
call.
is- Yeah, I'm gonna.
We'll look into holes.
I'm pretty.
You got a hole in your backyard,
We
we're
did
there.
one hole.
I might change that.
Well, we had 2 holes technically.
I might actually change the description
Yeah.
of our podcast to that. That
To-
might be a better description.
searching
of our
for holes?
podcast. Yeah.
That's funny. If you are a fan of all things weird, do yourself a favor and
Oy.
give the podcast a listen. Strap in and strap on. You are about to enter ... Bull Point.
Oh Jesus.
Awesome, Scott.
Nice, thank you.
Great callbacks.
That's a great.
Bold point.
That's a great review. That's funny.
And now we got one more that I've just got to scroll down to in good time. This is from Dan Norton.
All right, what up, Dan?
Very funny and very interesting stuff. Happy to add it to my weekly lineup. Keep making gold,
Gerald.
just like Ponyboy. We're going to stay gold as fuck.
Or we're some alchemists.
Not sure how to give it 5 stars, but I would give it 10 if I could.
Oh,
shit.
nice.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Cool.
Hot diggity damn.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan.
All right. So this week we were talking about, and this is pretty fun, Moss Man.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Not from He-Man,
No, though that was a great figure that was really fun to touch.
but don't put him in the slime pit.
Yeah, no, you're fucked.
Yeah.
You will
He's
never get the
screwed.
slime out of Moss Man.
No, I ruined mine.
It's fun. I haven't thought of that character in years.
All right. This bizarre foliage smothered synthesis of plant and animal cast an ominous shadow over a stretch of East Florida beach throughout its decade-long reign of terror. And to this day, debates rage as to whether or not this leafy fiend's origins is biological or the result of an ancient curse.
Ancient curses. Aren't they just the best?
Always go for the ancient curse.
You know what?
yeah, they're the
Modern
bomb.
curses? Come see, come sa. Ancient curses? God damn it, they knew how to manufacture. That was handcrafted cursing back
That's
then.
right.
None of that fucking computerized, book-learned cursing. That was
Yeah.
passed on from master to apprentice cursing.
The kids these days don't know.
They don't know. They don't know
No.
how to throw a curse around.
Robert, tell us about the Moss Man from Florida.
Let me tell you a little bit about where he lives first. Wedged between the salt-churned waters of the Atlantic and the biologically diverse wonderland that is the Florida Everglades lays the prosperous coastal city of Boca Raton, and within that area can be found the pristine beaches of Red Reef Park. Littered with townhouses, condos, golf courses, and the vaguely corrupt stench of affluence, political statement.
Wow.
Red Reef Park is the last place on Earth one might imagine would give birth to a slimy, muck-ridden, plant-like monstrosity. But in the late 1970s, that's precisely what happened.
Damn.
The first known sighting of Florida's infamous Moss Man, as it came to be known, hails from 1978 when a young, unidentified couple was enjoying a romantic stroll on South Beach not far from Red Reef Park. As they leisurely made their way down the beach, the man spied a thin, humanoid figure huddled amongst the sea grape undergrowth. That's just a dense hunk of foliage there.
yeah.
Yeah. Just above the dunes at the end of Palmetto Road. The pair, justifiably preoccupied by the ocean's beauty and their own burgeoning desires, paid little mind to what they initially believed was just a homeless man in a tattered raincoat. That was until this quote-unquote man stood up. The would-be Lothario later reported that as the skinny, ragged figure rose up, it glared down at the couple with what the young man described as eerily bright, amber-colored eyes, which he instantly realized did not belong to a human being.
So I thought it was a homeless guy, and he is sorely
Yeah, no,
mistaken.
he thought it was just like a skinny, poor,
Right.
old homeless guy sleeping on the beach because it's free and hopefully, well, cold at night, but warm during the day, and a shitty old raincoat. No, it's the fucking Swamp Thing.
Nice.
It's a horror show.
Nice.
Yeah.
As if that weren't disturbing enough, the startled man also claimed that what he had mistaken for a frayed coat was actually a grassy or leaf-like substance that appeared to emerge directly from the bipedal dark green entity's epidermis. The man quickly realized that he was staring at a towering monstrosity that seemed to have leapt straight out of the pages of a comic book into the real world. Needless to say, the startled lovers swiftly backed away and began running to the South Beach Pavilion, stealing glances over their shoulder the entire way and praying that they would not suddenly spy the verdant fiend pursuing them over the soft, speed-impeding sand. The terrified couple soon ran into a group of vacationers near the pavilion and wasted no time in relaying the tale of their traumatic sighting of the skeletal Swamp Thing. In no time, a small crowd had gathered to hear the couple's bizarre story, and within minutes, a makeshift posse had formed, and 6 courageous, perhaps idiotic would be a better designation, souls decided to go back and see if the leafy monster still occupied its perch.
So we got a Florida Beach monster posse.
You do.
Yeah.
Instantly made out of like vacationers that are
Yeah.
partying, like drinking margaritas on the beach. Like, oh, you saw?
Oh, we're gonna
You
go,
saw a leafy
We're
ass,
gonna go get this
yellow-eyed
motherfucker.
son of a bitch.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do this.
Get the boys,
Because
get the guns.
There's no more efficient way for a human being to really hunt down something than on the soft, slippery slopes
Yeah,
of
geez,
a beach.
I know, right?
I don't even like to walk 10 feet on a beach. I feel like I need an oxygen tank, fucking a paramedic. It is just
Yeah.
a bitch walking in fucking sand.
Yeah, well, there's no traction. It's
No
just-
traction
you
at
Yeah,
all.
you're just
So I
standing.
feel really bad for the couple running away, just sure this thing was going to take them down.
Yep.
But why would you go back out? I guess you're drunk and ballsy, and again,
It's Florida, dude.
trying to impress the ladies.
Fuck yeah, a bunch of
Yeah, there's a lot
bunch
of parallels
chicks
here.
hanging out. Yeah,
You see something, you think it's something.
Exactly,
You
yeah.
don't think it's you didn't huck rocks. That's the only thing missing.
that's right. Throw some
who's to
rocks.
say it won't
impress
happen?
the ladies.
Or clams, I guess.
Oh,
on
yeah,
the
you
beach,
could hook
right?
And you
clam.
could throw clams.
Oh,
yeah.
they could be like little fucking ninja stars.
Totally. Yeah,
They can be sharp, the edges of the clam.
Yeah, you could sharpen a clamshell.
totally.
Seems like
Or you could just get a gun.
you could probably just buy,
Yeah,
a
I mean,
weapon
really, just
that's
get
real.
a baseball bat, a gun, a pitchfork, a pair of some golf clubs.
No, you need to use what nature gave you.
Yeah, golf
Sharp
clubs.
clams.
Oh my God, Amish monster hunting with Chris Carnicella.
And then you might get a pearl.
Oh,
And
and you
retire.
choke on it.
That's true.
And then you can buy a bunch of blunderbusses.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
a
there
pearl
you go.
that you retire
Yeah.
with.
right.
The single pearl
You can
that
steam,
makes your life.
You can steam the clams. Have a pre-cookout.
That is delicious.
A pre-cookout for your
Nah.
monster hunt.
Hone your deadly weapons
There you
while
go.
you're eating.
Yeah,
Make yourself a suit of clam armor while you're at it.
do it.
Clam guns, clam armor,
Clam helmets.
clam mail.
Oh, clam boots.
Oh,
Clam boots.
Clam boots?
Yeah, clam boots. Boots of a clam.
Boots
Continue,
of a clam.
Robert.
These
Man, that was dumb.
It
really was.
It was super dumb.
These intrepid amateur sleuths scanned the dunes, which inclined sharply towards the dense scrub and Australian pines that formed a natural barrier separating the beach from the roadways which wove their way through the palatial townhouses of Red Reef Park. Eventually, the undergrowth became impenetrable, and the posse was forced to retreat, but not before they stumbled upon copious clumps of damp Spanish moss littering the area where the creature had been seen. Within days, word of the mysterious Moss Man had spread throughout the region, and a local legend was born. During the next 2 years, the creature would sporadically rear its creepy moss-covered cranium to the dismay of sundown beach walkers, but it wouldn't be until the dawn of a new decade that the beast would return with a vengeance. We're talking about a great decade. Decade we're all pretty damn partial to. A little decade called the 1980s.
With youth and innocence. Yeah, there you go.
And MTV and big hair and
Well,
shopping malls
not
and
for me,
video
but-
arcades.
I mean, being the younger one, I didn't get to
best.
experience all the cool stuff. Oh,
No, it
shucks.
sucks. You missed it.
Chris and I were pretty young in the initial part of the 80s, but we definitely came of age.
I was doing some
by the
shit in
later 80s.
'89 when I was 9, though.
Oh, I bet you were.
Started smoking cigarettes when I was 12.
God bless you.
Dirtball mark.
Jeez.
Scumbag in it.
Well, gosh darn it, that's a part of your past. In 1980, the all but dormant bog beast began appearing with alarming frequency. 11 isolated sightings were reported at Red Reef Park, as well as other locations, including West Palm Beach and Hillsborough Beach.
Oh, wow.
So it's a
Hillsborough.
beach party for this fucking thing. Most of the eyewitnesses depicted a man-like being, but others described a more ephemeral entity akin to a wraith, quote unquote. And in one instance, it was described as a water spirit.
But that's because it's so waifish, right? It's like so
Well,
skinny and tall and just kind of like...
The illustration I've seen, think of it this way, like an old school Halloween mask where people used to like sort of tie around the neck, so it was like a round head and then a flowing ghost-like body.
Right.
Imagine that, but instead of it being a white sheet, it is seaweed and vines and leaves, and all you see are eyes.
Okay.
That's essentially the description of the Moss Man that's been
All right,
passed
so it's
down.
not some big hulking creature.
It's
just
pretty big.
But tall, but that's not like bulky and has
Yeah,
mass
it's not like
to it.
necessarily super buff. In fact,
Yeah.
I don't even know if I've ever seen a description specifically stating it has arms. It just seems to be a tall, ostensibly bipedal,
Right.
and it's got just seaweed, fucking lichen, moss, just swamp detritus dangling off it.
Okay. All right.
Or actually a part of it.
Right.
So, a wraith, I don't know.
It's funny that somebody would actually say that word.
Yeah.
Like I say ironically because nobody would use that word
It was
for
a
an-
wraith.
Yeah, I know.
for a ghost.
I tell you, a
No,
wraith.
Rarely specter.
But I love that word. Yeah.
But wraith,
No, wraith is
the
awesome.
rarest.
I
And the
know.
best. Because
Totally.
it's a vengeful fucking spirit. It's a great
Yeah.
name.
Yeah,
and it's
it's
even
amazing.
a halfway decent Charlie Sheen film.
I
I mean, it's
know.
weird enough to be
Oh,
good.
I forgot about
It's
Wraith.
not
Wow.
great, but it's quirky. Yeah.
But then again, you know what? His sweet
and the
car.
greatest swimming hole ever. And sweet ghost cars and revenge.
Yeah, they just blew up, ran into you and blew you up.
And Clint Howard.
And Clint Howard.
Jesus, what do you want, people?
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Skank and Gutter Boy.
Cinematic masterpiece. There you
I
go.
can't say that, but I was young enough to see it too. I probably saw it, honestly, at a double feature, the drive-in with, like, Band of the Hand. Like, it was probably just an 80s crapster piece fucking
Yeah.
night. But either way, I love them both. But the Wraith, especially, because it's paranormal, it's weird. Just fucking watch it. It has nothing to do with the fucking Moss Man.
All right, we got a water,
Yeah.
Robert. We got a water spirit on our hands.
We do. We do.
Bring it
Absolutely.
back.
All right, let me bring it home. After the 1980 flap, things seemed to settle back down for a while. This hiatus was broken by a short-lived wave of sightings in 1982, but it wouldn't be until the summer of 1988 when this vine-wrapped villain would have its final and closest encounter ever reported.
Oh no.
The ultimate event occurred within the 67-acre Gumbo Limbo Park. Let's savor that
Gumbo
for a minute.
Gumbo
Limbo
Limbo.
Park.
You want to go to Gumbo Limbo Park? I mean, it's like...
Do they
I
offer
wanna
you
eat
gumbo, but they like
But
take it
do you have
back?
to- or do you have to limbo first?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're saying Gumbo Limbo.
If you don't make the bent, you don't get to eat the goods.
That's right. Okay. So Gumbo Limbo Park. What happened in Gumbo Limbo Park?
Let me tell you a little bit about the park first. The park serves as a marine preserve that also includes a 20-acre environmental education nature center. It would be in this out-of-the-way sanctuary that an elderly couple would have a run-in with the notorious being. Near dusk, the long married duo made their way from the isolated heart of the park toward the gravel path that led to the exit. That was when they first noticed a sudden movement in the shrubbery next to them. The woman, at this point more curious than concerned, leaned forward in order to get a better look at the murky green form huddled in the obscuring bushes. At first, the pair assumed that it must be one of the great birds that call the park home, but just as they were about to move away from the partially concealed life form, they got the shock of their long lives.
What was it, Robert?
You're about to find out. Without warning. Sans warning, just so you know.
No, there's no warning at all.
No, I know you.
No written letter that said
nothing.
Beware, something's about to
No
happen.
telegraph.
No text message. No pager.
No klaxon.
No pager.
To alert this. No.
No,
Without
nothing.
warning.
Morse code.
A shadowy, leaf-shrouded figure turned, and the woman found herself face to face with a creature that was unlike any she had ever seen. Their faces were uncomfortably close as the mossy monster locked onto her wide eyes with its own eerily luminescent amber orbs.
So she's legit face to face with this thing,
Face-to-face,
just
close as
breathing
we are.
moss man breath.
And you know, it's got to be that kind of rancid swamp funk. You
it's
have to imagine. We've all
gross.
walked through bogs.
Yeah.
We've talked about it before, like
Yeah.
when we were shooting
No,
the
bogs are the
American
worst.
Monster.
Bogs,
The
yeah.
smell of decaying
decay
vegetation.
and methane and just nasty
Yeah.
shit.
Oh.
Rotten eggs and death.
And you have to assume
Farts and old leaves.
exactly
Yeah.
that this thing reeked of it. This thing probably smelled so bad that skunk apes are going like, seriously, take a fucking shower, man. Go die in the ocean. Leave
But
me
he's
alone.
face to face with this woman.
He is. Eye to amber eye.
Okay.
Okay. It was then that they realized that this was not some kind of avian anomaly, but a plant-like humanoid. The terrified seniors moved as rapidly as their legs would carry them to the park ranger station near the exit. Breathlessly, they told the ranger of the tendril-covered bayou beast that they had just seen. The rangers did their best to calm the panicked couple and then went out to investigate. Unfortunately, by the time they arrived at the scene, the only signs of the creature were moist clumps of vegetation. It had disappeared again, and this time it seems for good. Or was it? I think we all know the answer to that. It was not.
Was it? Was it is the answer.
In all fairness, this is the last official sighting.
Okay. All right.
After the final formal report of the Moss Man, rumors swirled throughout the 90s regarding other eyewitness encounters, but none of them were quote-unquote officially recorded, so it is difficult to separate the proverbial wheat from the chaff on this one. So it didn't die in terms of sightings, like it didn't completely die out in the late 80s, 88, but it became more sporadic, and nothing recently as far as I know. Here's where things kind of take a little bit of a twist. Greg Jenkins, while on summer break from military school, became one of the first field investigators to seriously examine the Moss Man flap of the early 80s. So now we're going back in time a little.
Okay.
He would eventually write the book Chronicles of the Strange and Uncanny in Florida, and when he was younger, on summer break, he's like, fuck this. Instead of squandering his days on surf and sun, he and a buddy decided to track down all the evidence they could.
Nice.
Okay.
Solid.
Now, they didn't find any physical evidence. They managed to dig up a little-known legend regarding a supernatural being that had reputedly haunted the region for centuries. So what we have at first is a spate of seemingly cryptozoological encounters starting in the late 70s.
Yeah.
And now they're starting to come to light older legends. We're going to get into this. It's pretty interesting. According to Jenkins, while he and his friend were making inquiries about this bizarre beast, they came across a veteran Red Reef Park ranger who had not only been intrigued by the recent reports of the Moss Man, but also had a theory regarding its unnatural origins. The ranger was an amateur historian who regaled the curious youths with tales of Spanish invaders, a native princess, a heinous crime, and a distinctly supernatural vengeance for the perpetrators of said crime.
Is this where the curse comes in?
Now we're going to head into ancient curse territory.
Is this like Pumpkinhead again?
Yeah, this could be.
This definitely
Moss
is,
Head?
This is Pumpkinhead, Moss Head territory. Absolutely. So this is a quote from Jenkins. When my friend and I asked some of the locals about the moss-covered monster, we were entertained by a plethora of stories that only fueled our interest. One of the most interesting stories came from a park ranger who had a keen interest in such things and who had worked at Red Reef Park for several years. He knew of a tale, and he told us of that legend that was much older than people thought. It was, in fact, a creature which resembles a man but is covered in seaweed or other ocean-like grasses that was born from a Native American curse which originated during the 1500s. So that's taking us back. That's early. That's first settlers in America.
Yeah,
old.
totally. Yeah.
The ranger went on to explain that after the Spanish conquistadors invaded the region, one of the men took it upon himself to not only kidnap a Native American princess, but rape and decapitate her. Class act, Dick. Real smooth.
It's fucked up.
Following this brutal atrocity, the vile soldier, for reasons known only to him, decided to tie the head of the princess to a tree. So he rapes, beheads, and why not tie her head to a fucking tree? Because I'm a supreme psychopathic jerk.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
why not?
Apparently, it was Game of Thrones era.
I was going to say, this sounds like Game of Thrones. Yeah, totally.
Legend had it that the hair of the butchered princess took root in the tree, and that eventually her spirit infected, quote unquote, all of the life forms, all of the plant life in the area. Excuse me. The plants, under the spiritual influence of the deceased girl, managed to drive the Spanish from her ancestral land. So that's a crazy legend.
Yeah, that's like some Swamp Thing type shit, right?
Yeah,
there. Really.
and your soul. It really. You almost have to wonder: did Len Wein and I don't remember who else created them. Did they have like some knowledge of this? Because the idea of a spirit going into the swamp and plant life and then using it to, well, in the case of Swamp Thing, defend the swamp, but in this case, fuck the Spanish. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Legend also stated that a powerful medicine man carried on the princess's vegetative vengeance by creating a golem-like creature out of lichen, moss, and other plant matter in order to wreak havoc on the descendants of the Spanish soldiers who had been foolhardy enough to remain in the region.
Is this a possible homunculus? I love saying that word because I can't say it.
A dirt swamp homunculus.
Homunculus. Or a golem. Either way.
A super golem.
Same thing.
Well,
Right?
I mean, the golem is, a man made of mud with, scrolls put in his mouth from Jewish legend that's supposed to protect the people,
Right.
the Jewish people and destroy their enemies. A homunculus is just an artificial human, I think, that's brought to life through alchemy and stuff. I'm not an expert, so if I'm talking on my ass a little, I think they're very similar, but I don't think they're synonymous-y, but I don't think they're the same thing.
I just want to offend a golem if they're listening.
Yeah,
I'm not a goddamn homunculus, you son of a bitch.
That would be
like,
horrible.
sorry.
If you see a golem in a bar, don't assume it's a homunculus.
It's a homunculus.
And don't ask if its wife is pregnant.
And don't ask them homunculus, like, are you like a golem? Are you friends with the golem? They'll be like, how dare you? We're brittle enemies.
Don't put a scroll in its mouth saying, buy me a beer either.
Yeah, no,
because that's just
going to
backfire.
No, that's mean. All right.
Just leave the golem alone.
No, it could be.
Just making sure we got our legends and lore straight.
It could be some sort of weird elemental, too, I guess, really.
Yeah. I mean,
the
classic protectors of the environment.
Totally.
Mineral creatures, plant creatures, animal spirits. I mean, native lore throughout the planet has creatures
swamp
like
things,
this.
Dude.
Swamp things for days. And, let's not forget the bastard cousin, man things.
Man things.
Unnecessary trunks, but pretty awesome.
Man thing.
Lots of a
Thing of a man. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes.
You're so proud of yourself.
I am. I'm so worse. I'm so proud.
Thing of a man.
Oh, man thing.
All right. I love your songs. While this legend might explain the existence of an evolutionary anomaly such as the Moss Man, it could also be, like so many myths, that they were created as an explanation concocted by perplexed locals to explain away a natural phenomenon.
This is a natural phenomenon?
Which is to say that maybe this is a piece of magic that is either a vengeful princess's spirit infecting plants, or the super plant golem made by the medicine man, or maybe the natives saw this thing like they see Sasquatch in the Pacific Northwest or other creatures, that people are want to see. And then they incorporate that into their legend.
Oh, gotcha.
Which is, I'm saying that if they saw something like this, maybe they would build a legend around it, just the way, an eclipse was a wolf eating the moon for the Norse or something. It's not necessarily what's happening, but you have to describe what you're seeing and give it rationale.
Right,
so you turn a genuine astronomical phenomenon into part of your religious tradition.
Yeah, no, totally.
And so what I'm saying is, maybe this happened, or maybe the natives saw this thing and it's a natural part of their fauna or flora or a combination thereof, and they just incorporated it into their mythology, but that's not necessarily its genuine origin.
Okay, cool.
Just a general overview. It goes without saying that in all the zoological or botanical records of our world, there are exceedingly few biological precedents for the existence of animals with plant-like properties or vice versa. We all know that.
Yeah.
We all know about carnivorous plants like the Venus flytrap or the cobra lily, but on the other side of the coin, we have single-celled animals like the Mesodinium chameleon and the Mesodinium rubrum, which have characteristics of both plants and animals, but of course they're single-celled. There's even the vastly more advanced chlorophyll-producing Elysia chloroticator. Said that wrong. Elysia chloroticator, or green sea slug, but then there's nothing that has these traits that comes even close to the complexity of a human being, at least that we know of. So while there's vague examples of micro creatures or sea slugs that, can cross the lines a little, we really don't have larger creatures that take nutrients from the sun, and we don't have a lot of plants that are devouring human beings. There's the Madagascar man-eating tree of legend and things like that, but not really in the official record.
There's very separate things in nature, like very separate things.
Absolutely. I'm going to add this last part just because I fucking love it. Jenkins went on to suggest that the Mossman sightings may have been indirectly related to the glowing-eyed, seaweed-slathered spirits of retribution depicted in the motion picture The Fog by John Carpenter.
Oh, jeez.
It's worth mentioning, though, that the first contemporary sightings of the beast or beasts occurred a full 2 years before the release of The Fog. I love The Fog. I love John Carpenter. I love Captain Blake and his fucking.
So he's
awesome
trying to
story.
see if people are
That people might have seen the fog and been like, oh, it was this tall seaweed strewn and had glowing eyes. But I think that's a tenuous association. I just had to mention it mostly because I wanted to give a shout out to The Fog because I fucking love that movie.
Well, sure.
Totally, yeah.
And I love John Carpenter. So boom, there we have essentially the Mossman. Now we can say this for a fact: if it's real and if it's essentially what people say it is, which is a self-locomoting plant person, it's got a lot of places it can hide in Florida. The fucking Everglades are vast, and if you're going to look like a pile of fucking shitty leaves, you sit down, you're going to walk past a Mossman all the livelong day.
Yeah, it's a great camouflage. That's for sure.
I'm not saying that says, well, case closed, there's a fucking Mossman, it's got plenty of place to hide, but it's worth noting that it could go years without being seen very easily.
So we could start with the hoax angle.
Yes, we can.
Right.
Because this little thing we all know is a ghillie suit.
Yeah. Yeah. We could you could easily put a ghillie suit on and totally prank people, I guess, or, whatever. Even when they said they thought it was a homeless guy in like a raincoat or something, like it wouldn't be far-fetched to think that a homeless guy very well could be down there on the beach, covering himself in muck or whatever just to scare people.
Or
why not?
Drunk, maybe a junkie, very cold.
Yeah, just hammered.
Grabs the sea grape leaves and just whips it over him like a blanket.
Yeah. He's like, I'm going to go scare tourists.
Yeah. Well, that might explain
like
the first one, but then other...
Yeah, that might explain the first one. Because it's at a distance. It seems like it's sunsetty. I don't know. But
Amber Eyes, though. You know what that sounds like?
The Orange Eyes from...
That's
the
right.
hobo with the black reflectors on the
good old
sticks.
Orange
Eyes.
Orange Eyes,
Oh, goddamn. Is it another hobo account? Are we fucking dealing with a hobo crypto hoax epidemic?
We could be. You never know.
Goddamn hobos.
The description is kind of weird because they say how wispy thin that it is, and obviously being covered in the foliage. Foliage. So.
Oddly enough, not a lot of mention of being covered in moss.
No,
it's strange that it got the appellation of Moss Man. It should have been Leafy Vine Man or Seaweed Man.
It sounds like it has like a shawl made of leaves on it.
It's really what it sounds like.
Well, just all kinds of matter, plant, ish stuff.
So, but I don't think hoaxing or pranking or faking this would really be that hard. I think you could probably do it.
You probably could, especially the distant sightings. And who knows? Maybe there was like 1 or 2 legitimate sightings in 1980, and that local kids started saying fuck all, and that's how it turns into 11 sightings.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a possibility. But we still have to entertain the notion, especially the final official account with the elderly couple in the Gumbo Limbo Park.
Right.
I mean, it's right there.
Face to face.
It's not like going and trying to scare them. It's not like
isn't it just standing
what
there?
a hoaxster would do typically. If you're just hiding in this like hidden remote part of this park and a couple just happens to walk by and it's near closing time or whatever, and you're just waiting and finally like, oh, they're finally here. You've got cramps for days, you're dying on the inside, you haven't moved, then finally you stand up and look. You have fucking wasted so much time and gone through so much pain for almost nothing.
Well, unless you're stalking these
right
people
there,
and you know where they're going and you plan the whole fucking thing out.
Aunt Hilda, and you're really looking for her fucking will to be read really soon.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
But then you have to drop both of them.
Yeah,
So,
it's
a bad plan. If that's your Scooby-Doo plan to get your inheritance, that's a bad plan.
The possibility is always there.
Yes.
Always is the possibility to
There's
a hoax
absolutely
open.
a possibility. And I would even go so far as to say, I think probably maybe a full half of these sightings are hoaxes that might have been perpetrated following the phenomenon.
Right.
But I do think that there might be something to some of the sightings.
So it could, so possibly we could be dealing with something that's like indigenous to the area.
Yes.
Or this could be an ancient Indian curse.
That's what local legends say.
There you go.
Or that.
Or that, yeah.
Or
that.
something from the ocean. I mean, it's
could
easy
be.
to look into the Everglades because this thing seems swampy as the dickens, but really, if it's coming from the other direction, it's covered in kelp and seaweed and whatever the hell else, some aquatic plants. It's seen on the beach almost always.
Right.
So it could be coming from the exact other direction and then go back in.
Yeah.
And then it would never be seen. And then it could have 8-year hiatuses.
Could.
So
Yeah,
the fascinating thing is it could really be coming from either direction because there's no real thing to indicate that it's, I mean, possibly it's amphibious, but who knows if it's even an air breather. If it's more of a plant, then it gets its, energy from either the sun or nutrients in the water or and can maybe exchange oxygen in ways that, mammals cannot. Most animals can't. So we can't really limit anything if this is just a really advanced plant.
There's a lot of sightings of it too, which is really interesting. Granted, like you mentioned, some could be hoaxes, but there's a lot of people that see this thing.
There's another thing, and it's probably something that deserves its own podcast, but I feel like we should mention it, and that is, not too far away geographically in the Louisiana Bayou, there is a creature known as the Pierre Malfait, which is. It was kind of made famous back in the 70s in a Kolchak, the Night Stalker episode. You guys remember that show? With
I remember
Darren
the show,
McGavin?
totally.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was an episode called The Spanish Moss Murderers. And it's basically Richard Keel, the guy who played Jaws in the James Bond film, was just slathered in seaweed and walking around and murdering people and sort of is an avatar for this dude in a coma or something. The plot doesn't matter. But the legend of this creature goes back centuries within the bayou, and it's literally known as the father of leaves.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating thing that a creature very similar to the Moss Man has been a part of local lore in Louisiana for a very long time, completely independent of these sightings at Boca Raton and that area. So that I'm not saying that well, there it is, it's the species is spreading or it's migrating or there's something to it, but at least there is some sort of a backlog of similar creatures seen in the southeast of the United States.
Yeah, but I feel like that's just a regional. Look, any place that has mountains has lumbering kind of mountain things. Like either it's a Bigfoot here or Yeti here or this here. You know what I mean?
So when you get to,
I feel like if you're swampy bayou,
you're gonna get swampy bayou creatures.
Yeah, you're gonna get mossy.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's got to be some desert ones that are just like.
I'm sure. Yeah. Well, thunderbirds.
Well, there's Mongolian death worms and stuff, which are like beige, dry, electrical, shocking, homicidal worms that allegedly live in the sands of Mongolia. You're right. But on the other hand, it could be just a matter-of-fact thing that animals tend to be suited to the environment
that's
they
not
live
a debunk. I'm just saying
I didn't think you were.
That's just how that is.
But legends do crop up. If you live in a swamp, there are legends of swamp monsters.
Yeah, right.
You're right. If you live in the dense forests of wherever, there are legends of wild men.
Right.
That happens. Part of it is probably the human desire to, take in the unknown and try to interpret it. If they see something quick and they don't know what it is, but it seems to be walking on 2 feet and they've heard legends of Bigfoot, then it's a Bigfoot. Maybe they really did see a Bigfoot. Maybe they caught a glimpse of a bear, but it was so fleeting that their mind superimposed something.
Sure.
You just don't know. But it seems like the beach is weird. Like if people are going through the bayous or like with the Pierre Malfait, then that's one thing. But these people are on beaches.
Yeah.
And it's just we've all seen clumps of nasty, like even the beginning of Jaws or whenever we've been to Florida or California, just this clump of decaying vegetation that's sitting there.
Right.
The thought of that standing up and looking at you, it's just horrifying.
Yeah, right. Oh,
it's absolutely fucking disturbing.
I don't need nowhere to go with
and
that
so
one.
if it's on a beach constantly, you almost you have to wonder if it may be oceanic, but then what's it doing? It hasn't attacked anybody, or more ominously, anybody that has been attacked by it did not get to tell their tale.
Yeah.
And you always have to say that. It's easy to say, hey, clearly it has no malevolent intentions because it didn't kill any of the people that came back and told us they saw it.
Right.
That's because they got to come back and tell you they fucking saw it.
They didn't get dragged to the murky depths.
Which is not to say it's not a benevolent creature, but others might have been drowned and eaten and fucking used to, fill out their nests so that they can lay their fucking horrible plant eggs in their
chair
skull.
made of human bones.
And who wouldn't want one?
Yeah.
Ed Gein, Moss Man. The list goes on.
Yeah.
I don't know who else, but those two.
That's a
Yes,
good
certainly.
point.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Yeah, this is a fucking weird thing. I mean, it is so Marvel Comics and DC Comic, more DC actually with Swamp Thing.
It definitely has a Swamp Thing vibe to it.
And it's just really... I'm just more intrigued than anything else by the prospect of plants becoming sufficiently advanced to be somewhat humanoid. Even if they don't speak, they have eyes. As you mentioned just the other day, Mark, human beings don't have eye shine unless they're suffering from something horrible like cancer or a few other conditions.
Right.
But human beings don't give off eye shine. So unless this is a really... And a ghillie suit from close up looks like a fucking ghillie suit. It does not look like a swamp monster. From a distance, maybe, crossing the road at night, but not during, a tighter encounter. So if this is a really advanced suit with super painful late 70s, early 80s contact lenses... Yeah, it's hard to just describe away as an outright hoax to me.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, okay. Obviously, the possibility of a hoax is always there, but we have some much cooler explanations. Let's go with the ancient curse.
That to me is so... I mean, first off, leaving aside the horrific nature of rape and dismemberment.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It is a classic, terrifying cinematic legend.
The curse called it Pumpkinhead.
Like that movie should have been in the 70s. That would have been a great drive-in movie where the girl gets done wrong, gets butchered, her hair grows into a tree. Suddenly you've got this horrible swamp monster like that walking tree in that 1950s movie From Hell It Came. Do you remember that? Stupid, lumbering, quirky-faced tree monster. It's a fucking horror show, though I enjoy the film. But something like that in the 70s when it would have been like a bloody mess of mayhem.
Yeah, totally.
That could have been amazing.
Yeah.
Damn it.
I know.
God damn it, William Greffe. Why didn't you make this movie?
No. It's probably... I don't think it's a curse.
I mean, I think the problem with the ancient curse is that you're just going by word of mouth. There's obviously no documentation of today we performed the curse on the Spanish, and then
nor did they even give the name of the ranger that said it.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like
he could have been just pissing in the wind, or I mean, someone could easily probably dig it up if they have access to Florida libraries or just I mean online even. I couldn't find anything, but I admit I didn't dig too deep. I was more interested in the Mossman account itself.
Yeah.
But I had to add it because it seems like an important side nugget that and who knows? I mean, the interesting thing too is the medicine man. This is like a whole separate thing. He's making a fucking plant golem to avenge, the indigenous peoples on the Spanish that raped and murdered and conquered their land. So that's like a whole separate thing. It's you have these two separate themes.
The girl is like traversing the nature to create this whatever to attack people, but then you've got this dude making the golem.
Yeah, which is much more specific.
You have two different ones.
That's two different things.
Okay, all right, yeah, huh?
I mean, one is the happening or whatever the fuck that horrible Marky Mark thing was.
Yeah,
where the plants themselves are avenging and you're fucked, and the other one is literally Swamp Thing / Moss Man / Man Thing.
Right.
I'm going to make you a humanoid plant monster to wreak vengeance.
Yeah.
So that's more in time. But, we have to be dubious about this kind of thing. Part of me, like I said earlier...
Cinematically, man, it sounds awesome. I want to see that movie.
It's balls. But in reality, a lot of ancient cultures saw what they saw and incorporated it into their mythology in a way they could wrap their heads around. Right. It doesn't mean they were stupid. It doesn't mean that they were willfully ignorant. It just means they had what knowledge they had at the time, and you have to incorporate the things you see into a sort of methodology you can live with.
Yeah.
Right.
So I have more of a feeling that they saw Moss Man and tried to figure out how it fit into their history rather than it actually being an extension of a fucking curse.
But if it's natural and based in reality, then what could it be? I don't think it's more plant. I believe it has to be more animal. It just has some plant.
Well, eyes.
Aspects,
plants don't have eyes.
Plants and animals are just there's nothing that makes them compatible.
Right.
Like just nothing. You know what I mean? Like
besides the very few examples I gave, which are scant and usually single-celled.
That's what I mean. Like
it doesn't
as
happen.
far as Darwin is concerned, there's just no.
The sea slug that uses chlorophyll might be more akin, according to what Chris is saying, because that's an animal that employs some plant-like elements in its feeding process.
Right, but it's not a complex.
No, it's a slug. It's more complex than a couple of cells.
Sure, but it's.
But I'm just saying it's more in line with the idea of an animal with plant traits rather than a plant with animalistic traits.
Right.
Because that just seems not.
It seems hard to wrap your head around because you never see the walking tree. You know, the fucking Wisconsin walking tree that, you know, it was in my yard. I bought it. It was great.
No,
now it's
but
at the Davis house.
I thought I saw
shading
somebody,
their fucking hammock.
somebody
left.
posted something about. There's been sightings of people seeing fucking tree beards randomly.
Oh, on our Facebook page. Yeah, someone did post it up.
So
Shit.
look, there's a tree that's
see,
walking
what? Help me
around.
out with this.
Random tree beards.
Yeah, like walking trees. Yeah.
They're called tree beards?
No, because from Lord of the
No,
Rings.
from Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jesus
But-
Christ. All right.
Yeah,
So
no.
people are seeing walking trees?
Yeah, it's
Well,
posted on our Facebook
See,
page.
I love that.
We'd
Thank
have
you for
to-
doing that because here I am mocking the idea of walking trees and we have accounts right under my nose on our fucking site and I just... Yeah, I can only read so much, people. I do my best.
So,
walking trees.
So, do you think that this is something that is obviously being indigenous to the area, but like so it must be using the beach as like a hunting ground, possibly, even though there's no reports of it attacking anybody,
Right?
Or that's just kind of where it hangs out, is in the mossy, weird area of the beach
Seemingly.
/ bayou. Well, I mean, what's a bayou considered though?
Well,
Like,
it's
what is that?
swampy. It's a boggy, wet.
Is it like brackish water or something?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But the Everglades are dead up super swamp.
Right.
And so here's the thing that
I mean,
intrigues
it could
me.
be traveling from the Everglades to this area.
If this thing uses chlorophyll to feed,
Right.
then what better place than a beach to get maximum sun impact?
Yeah.
Like
no, totally.
maybe if you're in the dense forested regions of the Everglades, maybe it hits you, but you don't get as much as you would like.
Right.
So maybe an occasional intrepid, curious, or especially hungry, member of the mossman species, because I have to assume that it's not a single entity.
Right,
If
right.
it has even a small breeding population, maybe one occasionally goes to the beach where they are just bombarded by the rays of the sun, and that helps them feed.
Yeah.
Or maybe they like fish. Maybe they
It's
just
true.
like the sound of waves.
Yeah.
But
Or
assuming that it has plant-like
scaring
qualities.
scaring young lovers on
But who doesn't
walks.
love that? That's just one of the great joys of a moss man's life.
Yeah.
I need some rays. I need some terrified couples.
Yeah.
I need a good Judy Blume book because they
All right.
love Judy Blume.
So, Chris, what do you think this is?
I just don't even fucking know, man.
Are you there, God? It's me, Moss Man. Sorry, I'm done.
I don't know. There's a lot of sightings. There's a lot of things.
Right.
I don't really have a real world
Okay.
thing for this because
There is no real world thing for it. That's the problem, I think. Is that there's nothing you can hang your hat on in terms of
Right.
traditional zoology.
No, you're right.
or
I
even
mean,
botany.
I guess you
Yeah.
could say there, since if you have, the mountainous Bigfoots and then you have other versions of that, you could have a boggy version of.
Well, Boggyfoot. Yeah.
Well, you do have like the Honey Island Swamp Monster and the
That's true.
Skunk Ape,
Yeah, I mean,
which
there's
are
no
the
re-
boggy foots, really.
There's no reason one couldn't have like a skin and just that's the shit. Like anything that's things that are
So you
aquatic
need-
get barnacles and shit.
Just
So
shitty,
it just things just get on.
liquefied skin. So you're thinking it might be a Bigfoot type creature that's just gone to seed with like shitty moss.
Yeah, but
and
it's
It
skunk
just could be
ape.
it could be just the nature of it that it
It's
just
described as being like
attracts
wispy.
shit on it. You know what I
Well, it's
mean?
described as being thin,
Like
but
thin,
there
but
are,
not-
to give Chris's theory its due, there are plenty of thin Bigfoot reports. Like, yes, it's standardly the size of a super linebacker, 7'5", 400, 600 pounds, and just huge and terrifying. But there have definitely been scads of reports of very thin. Maybe it's due to, poor, feeding grounds, like maybe it's been all wooded out and all the other smaller animals are gone
Right.
or the plants are, denuded or whatever. I don't know. I don't know why a Bigfoot would be skinny.
No,
Jenny
yeah,
Craig.
that's right. I don't know. Yeah,
Atkins diet.
it works out. Jane Fonda, thank you.
He really, really wants
It's
to
on
look good
Weight
for his
Watchers,
plus
it's
gets
watch
Wesical.
his
I mean, I can't
points.
explain glowing amber eyes, whatever.
Yeah, no.
But at this point, I'm like, that's about all I got for.
And I see
right.
what Chris is saying.
Yeah,
in
no,
that.
I get it,
Like the idea that it's like a hominid or at least mammalian, and it's just covered in the shitty swag of bayou and Everglades living.
Right.
I can see some truth in that, but that's not where my personal bias lies.
Okay.
Yeah.
My personal bias, and I admit full fucking on that this is wishful thinking, is that there would be no easier place to hide, and I know we talked about this a little bit with stumps, than a creature that is partially vegetative, somewhat sentient, living in a swamp or a forest. You would blend so quickly you would never be seen. If most animals, if tigers can hide in a jungle and you wouldn't see it unless you stepped right on top of it, then certainly things that actually look like plant or maybe even made of plant-like materials, you would never, ever see it. And if it doesn't have to be a predator, if it can really get its nutrition from the soil, from water, and from sun, then it could live undetected easily into the 21st century. Except for occasional examples, like maybe this one is fucking got dementia and it just wanders away where it's not supposed to, like grandpa leaving the home, and you got to like bring him home, like, no, grandma's in heaven, you're not going to see a wonderful life, you're just going to sit and take your meds. Tragic story though that is, maybe this is an example
most
of a moss
depressing
man.
example ever, actually.
I'm just saying. This
So you
might
think
be,
it's more of a plant?
I do. I don't. Well, as I said, it's partially wishful thinking, but they describe it as a plant. They don't.
No, I know they
mean,
do.
They don't even necessarily describe arms. I know what you're saying. It could be a swamp ape, and that it's covered in filthy shit.
I'm just saying, like, if in nature we had more things of plants that roamed,
which we don't. We have.
You know
none.
what I mean? There's so I'm gonna be willing to be like, okay, well that would make.
Right.
Because somebody says you see a Bigfoot, it's a hairy bipedal thing. You're like, I understand this. We are almost those things.
Right.
We come from things that were a little bit less than those things.
Right.
So biologically, this makes sense.
And logically, what Chris is saying makes a fuck ton of sense. I hear everything, and I agree with it. And I think he's probably more likely to be right. But I am saying, conversely, that there are probably things that we can't fathom that have no reason to interact with us. Plants have been around much longer than advanced, mammals or animal life. I'm not saying it has happened. We certainly have absolutely no examples of it happening, except my love of sentient trees.
Tree beards.
Put that aside. If this thing evolved and doesn't need to encroach at all, then they could live virtually undetected in Africa, South America, any place that's wooded and or swampy.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah,
and this one, or maybe a few of them, just maybe development on their land and encroachment has forced them to like move in different circles. But if they were real, they could absolutely exist and never, ever, ever be noticed by us, even by the most seasoned swamp, hunter that just knows the bayous or the Everglades in and out. They would never think to look at a clump of fucking shitty vegetable matter and think anything but, oh, that's a clump of shitty vegetable matter.
That's what it is. Except this one seemed to stalk a old elderly couple.
Well, it stood up next to one when it was detected. It's not stalking anybody. It's just there.
Yeah, I feel like it's a stalker.
And people are terrified by it because it's unique and probably offensive to the nasal cavities as well as the eyes.
So maybe Moss Man isn't the problem. It's we're the problem.
Aren't we always, though? Aren't we always?
Well, that's the deal.
Wasn't it Bill Hicks that said they're like we're a virus with shoes? I think it was him.
It seems like a Bill Hicks thing to say. Bless his heart.
So maybe this is just another example of us ruining the earth.
It is.
Or maybe because we have natural instincts to avoid a snake or spiders, things that we know to be venomous. Maybe our natural instinct is to avoid these things because they are actively dangerous. Maybe they have no need to be predators. Maybe they don't eat human flesh, but we have maybe some ancestral fear that says, deep in our DNA, when you see this, go. Maybe we're just being biased assholes that anything that looks different scares us, so we run. Or maybe we are following a true built-in instinct that says, these are things you leave alone. I'm not saying that these creatures are benign. I'm just saying it would be fascinating if we coexisted with at least aware, if not actively sentient, forms of life that are not in any traditional way what we know to be intelligent, like a chimp, some sort of mammal or dolphin or anything, but made of plant matter, feeding off the sun, and just living a whole different kind of life, oblivious to us almost.
All right.
It could happen. I'd like to see it.
Yeah,
absolutely. I want that. I need that shit in the Bronx Zoo yesterday.
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, even the smallest thing, just
our
like
moss man habitat,
a plant that can uproot itself and go someplace.
Oh, the day a spider plant shows up, the day the fucking ruby
roop,
the day, Scooby-Doo's fun. The day the roots pull themselves out and you see like a fucking sunflower just scuttling across your lawn is the day.
Then you're going to be all like, oh, plants feel feelings. I'm so excited.
No, I'm going to be terrified.
And that's what you get for hoping the plants feel feelings.
I don't hope they do. I assume they might.
There's a difference.
I assume they might.
Well, I'm going to say
that's a lot of vagary there.
My explanation for Jesus. My explanation for the Moss Man might go back to our old favorite hobo with the bike reflectors and the sticks.
That's true.
Which is not fun. Which is not fun. And you know what? I'm here to have fun. So I'm going to say Ancient Indian Curse.
Oh,
right.
you're going with the
I'm
supernatural.
going to go against my instincts
No,
and
but
say supernatural.
but you really think it's fake. But you're going
Well,
with
yeah,
supernatural.
yeah, because I'm a big Swamp Thing fan. So I want to think of this as like a Swamp Thing based thing.
So basically, we're of three minds: dirty scumbag Bigfoot,
Yep.
ancient Indian curse,
Sure.
Native American, excuse me, fucking super sentient plant matter
Totally.
that just wants to do its thing on a
hang
beach.
the fuck
Yeah.
out.
Just want- you're in Florida. What do you want to do when you're in
I
Florida?
think we can all
Hang
go.
the fuck
I think
out.
we can. I think
know.
we can all go back to the homeless guy with the bike reflectors on sticks.
We can't ever ignore that possibility.
No,
It's not orange eyes.
saying.
I'm saying hobos do two
Amber
things.
eye, old amber
What's
eyes.
it? Hobos fucking ruin cryptozoology with their fuck-sucking hoaxes, and they ruin black velvet paintings with their sorrowful faces.
Oh yeah, with
Hobo
like
the
little
clown on a
knapsack.
black velvet painting.
Yeah, what
you
a
go
bummer.
fuck off and die.
Who gave
You
that
wasted
asshole
your
permission
talent.
to be
What
a
a bummer.
clown?
Ugh.
Here's
You're-
my idea: sadness. Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Oh, I need a hobo bindle, a tragic backstory.
Go entertain the kids with laughter. I can't. I'm sad.
I'm so sure.
Bad idea. Right out the gate.
I hate.
Was it smoking cigars too?
Oh,
I think he was
a
smoking a cigar.
stogie,
Yeah.
all red skeleton looking.
Cool. All right, so there you have it. The Florida Moss Man. Bringing it back.
Super hobo.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we got a couple ideas kicking around here what this might possibly
Damn
be.
it, I'm really rooting for plants.
Yeah, I mean,
seems like
I
I'm
like
always
your
erring on the
theory.
side.
I like your theory.
We're surrounded
I do.
by them. If they are thinking, I want them to just be like, dude, check this out on Netflix.
I know that's a dangerous path though, because if once
It
they start
is.
evolving,
It
then the
is.
happening's going to be real, and we're fucked.
Oh no! If they start
Yeah.
evolving, they're like, "Oh, you do what with my babies?
Yeah.
You reading
Yeah,
what?
exactly.
I mean, if someone
You're
found
trimming
out,
what?
if someone found out their parents were murdered to be, turned into
If you
leather-bound
really,
books,
if you really want to have like some sort of like
No.
other war with fucking vegetables,
I'm not interested
Good
in
luck.
that. No, we're done.
I like salads and I like cutting my lawn. So
No,
Yeah.
in fact, I usually feel better about myself when I eat plants because I'm like, oh, maybe I spared a life or something. As much as I adore the juiciness of meat, and then to find out, no, everything you eat makes you a monster. Except maybe yogurt,
Wow.
because I think yogurt is pretty much Nazis.
No,
Yogurt's
doesn't-
alive, but they really have nefarious
doesn't
intents.
yogurt have like active bacteria
Yeah,
in it?
so I feel good
Yeah,
when
it's
I
all
eat
kinds of
yogurt. I'm like,
bacteria.
I'm fucking stopping your reign of terror right
Wow.
now. Fuckface.
Yeah, but it's good bacteria.
Yeah, and you're adjusting your gut flora, which is good for you.
Absolutely. So it's
Yeah.
a win-win. Fuck
Yeah.
yogurt.
All right.
But on the other hand, I really do want to have a war with onions.
Oh,
See, I don't. I had onions today. They're
I'd be like,
delicious.
it's reckoning time,
Oh,
fuckers.
See, you know your hatred of onions. I love onions. They're good.
Yes, I'll tell you, they're pretty tasty.
Yeah,
No,
I put them
I'm
in
burning
everything.
the fields.
Okay.
Wow.
Onion. Leave no onion fields. Set them all ablaze.
The great Chris Conacelli Onion Wars.
There you
Volume
have
one.
it. Be sure to get a hold of us and let us know what you think the Florida Moss Man is. Send us your theories, your comments, your suggestions, and your questions.
Yes, all
there
of
you
them.
go. Get a hold of us. Let us know what you think. Be sure to follow us on the social medias, the Twitters, the Facebooks, the Instagrams. Be sure to rate and review this podcast on the iTunes and the Apple Podcasts apps. It helps us out greatly. And, gentlemen, closing thoughts.
I'm hungry.
Yeah, I'm
too.
super hungry.
I want pizza. That's my closing thought.
Yeah, no, I
All
mean,
right, so you want pizza, Robert?
yeah, no, pizza sounds good. These things are fucking awesome.
Yeah, they are.
The more living plant shit we can find, the happier I'm going to be.
There you have it. We're talking to you soon.
Pizza. I really need some pizza.
I don't know about
Let's do that.
living plants are great. I don't know about thinking plants though.
I think
It's going to be the
could
end of
awesome.
us.
Kill all green
It's worse
shit.
than
There you go.
AI.
But what if eventually like they can like genetically manipulate like hot corn? Like you can butter it up and eat her head, but make out with her. Did I go too far?
Yeah, we're
That costs
talking
Oh
to you
my
soon.
god.
Buttered corn, baby.
You're terrible. That's terrible. So again, we're talking Moss Man. That's too many words.
Moss man, you don't have to turn on the red light.
All right, let's see. All right.
You don't have to work for money. You don't have to say about it to the night.
Moss man.
All
Moss
right,
man.
let me just I'll do a reading of it and then I'll do it in proper.
Moss man.
This
Moss man,
Jesus Christ. It's foliage, right?
Foliage.
Jesus Christ.
This is an outtake that probably has to go in.